Cranbourne.
Whilst I rise to contribute to this debate with great honour and recognise that the Gender Equality Bill 2019 is a terrific step forward, but it is also with a heavy heart that I am conscious that this bill is about so much more than gender equity. This bill will promote gender equity because we know, and the science is crystal clear, that it is gender inequality that is the disease that is at the base of the scourge of family violence in this state. This bill promotes gender equality in the community by considering how policies, programs and services can impact people of different genders. And it's been developed to improve workplace gender equality. This bill requires the Victorian public sector, councils and universities to take positive action towards achieving workplace gender equality. And of course, it will require defined entities to develop a gender equality action plan every 4 years. It will require these entities to promote gender equality in the workplace based on the results of gender audits and prepare public progress reports every 2 years. It will compel entities to promote gender equality in their policies, programs and services through completing gender impact statements. It will importantly establish the Public Sector Gender Equality Commissioner to embark on monitoring compliance and enforcement. This Commissioner and the person that plays this role is fundamental to this bill. And we've heard from those opposite, and I can assure you that organisations need to be held to account, and this person will have the power to do that. This gender equality bill will apply to public service organisations with 50 or more employees and will cover 300 organisations. That will make up 11% of the Victorian workforce. And I'm delighted to assure the community it will apply to women and men across all levels of organisation. This bill creates a series of gender equality principles. I'm delighted that once again we are fulfilling a commitment made by the Andrews Labor government. We stand on the shoulders of women who have come before us, and although I am only recently arrived in this place, I am very conscious of the legacy of the previous incredibly hardworking ministers who have been involved in the development of this. Of course, Fiona Richardson, and earlier we had our contribution from Natalie Hutchins, a woman legendary for her wisdom, her hard work and capacity for getting things done. But of course we have in the chamber now the member for Dandenong, who is the Minister for Women. Now, being a minister is not just about making incredibly important speeches with gravitas, and I acknowledge that she does that. It's actually about the incredibly detailed policy work of good governance. It's the heavy lifting of good government, and this minister has done this work in collaboration with the sector. We have listened to the community, and we have listened to those with expertise and those who give us the science that we need to make good public policy, something that has been important in this chamber this week, I must say. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the hardworking people of the public service, of course always the Minister's office, and those women whose shoulders we stand on, many of whom who join us today. You must have wondered if this would ever come about, and I congratulate you all. I'm pleased that you are here, and we celebrate your contribution to this bill before us. This bill is here because of you. We've heard earlier this week impassioned contributions about the late John Cain and his emphasis on deep policy work. And we know that we need to be courageous, and we need to channel John Cain sometimes. We need to raise awareness sometimes, because that can be effective. And sometimes the community evolves, which is always good when the march of progress means change, but it is not enough. We need to use the levers of government to make change, because we need to compel people to make change. So 4 years of detailed consultations across all sectors, public, private and not-for-profit. 935 people and organisations have expressed their view, and I'm sure many in the chamber today have been included in that. This is hard work, and this government has been very clear. I'm very pleased always to be able to point to our record. 50% of this government's cabinet are women. 50% of appointments to government boards, as we heard earlier, are women. 53%. And we are, yes, of course, and we are now requiring 50% of court appointments to be women. 48% of the caucus are women, and many here today. The scoreboard is clear. Equality is not negotiable. I'd also like to acknowledge the wise friendship I have with the member for Carrum and the deep fury we discussed this morning when news came through of another tragic murder. And we did discuss early this morning that deep fury and whether I ought also acknowledge the pain of families in Cranbourne. And I choose not to name the man, but a terrible situation that reached our courts this week. And so it is with great sadness and fury that I honour the family of the women of Cranbourne who have been murdered at the hands of people with whom they should feel safe. And I have said before that my mother was a family violence worker, and I should say that at 88 she is still a person who campaigns to eradicate this scourge of family violence. And so it is with my channeling my mother, it is with my mother's voice very clearly in my ear only a couple of hours ago. I am conscious that we stand shoulder to shoulder with so many people who fought and celebrated this government's commitment to implement all 227 recommendations of the Royal Commission into Family Violence, of course backed with $2.9 billion investment. We listened to the experts who told us that family violence is a gendered crime, and the Family Violence Royal Commission told us that Victoria needed to establish a culture of non-violence and gender equality if we were to shape appropriate attitudes towards women. So I read back on some contributions made from Jesuit Social Services, and I thank Julie Edwards for allowing me to use their insights. Gender inequality, Jesuit Social Services tell me, refers to the narrow, rigid gender norms and stereotypes that limit individuals and groups of both men and women, thereby preventing them from living fulfilling and productive lives where they can flourish and reach their full potential. Gender inequality is problematic for men and women. Gender norms and expectations that have historically limited women's participation in public life and the workforce. And today we see rates of violence against women perpetrated by men also having a detrimental impact on men and boys. In my role serving and representing the Cranbourne community, I've been grateful for the wise counsel of organisations who likewise serve the people in my neighbourhood. And I'd like to thank Kit McMahon from Women's Health in the South East for taking me on that journey. She tells me that this bill is historic and that as an industry and as a community, we're taking the time to recognise this and the leadership that is occurring. This bill is significant for all people in Victoria. The jury is in. We know that gender equality is important for everyone. The leadership shown today is a profound contribution to all Victorians, their health and well-being. I'd like to thank Wellsprings for Women, an organisation I often turn to when people come to see me in my electorate, and I know one that also serves Dandenong as well. Wellsprings for Women recognised that the importance of the introduction of the Gender Equality Bill. They say to me that as a grassroots women's-specific organisation operating in Victoria's multicultural cities, they view this bill as a significant step forward towards achieving substantive gender equality and social inclusion. So I will report back to the women of Cranbourne, to the people in this community that I represent, but I would like to finish my contribution by dedicating this to Amanda Harris, to her mother and her children, to her neighbours who have suffered terribly, and to the women of Cranbourne, because people in Cranbourne deserve better, as they all do across this state. I wish this bill a speedy passage, and I thank the Minister for bringing it to us today.
Well, the member for Benny